See if that works. Is he right down there? Is this one working? Okay, we're all ready to go. Thank you, thank you. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I would like to just introduce the board. Councillor Mugford, Phil Freeman, our youth representative, Felix Gardner, Calvin Payne, and Sean New. So a very warm welcome to you people. We look forward to some of you are speaking. Is there anybody who, I know Harvey's already booked in, is there anybody else who wants to speak? Other than I know Murray and Thomas and Sarah have got you lined up. So we're not a problem. Is anybody else? Brian, you okay? Okay, right, okay. Right, as I say, a very warm welcome to you all. And again, isn't it great to see that we've got a community board, not only this year, but in the future. And thank you very much for all those. Right, I'll call for apologies. We have apologies from John Berry, our Deputy Chair. He's currently swanning around in China. So we won't be hearing from him today. No other further apologies. If so, somebody move that we accept John's apology. Move Phil, seconded Sean. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Identifications of any extraordinary business. I have one matter which I wish to bring up at the end. Has anybody else got any other matters they wish to raise? Right, thank you. Conflicts of interest? Right, we'll move on then. We have several council people here today. I particularly would like to welcome Murray. You're first on the block. So while you're just making your way here, could I say, Murray, what a great meeting the other day. We, as perhaps some of you do know, we've got a working committee forward now to look at the Springfield flood problems that they've had for a number of years. And now we've got a working party, we had our first meeting last Thursday, which consisted of council staff, Murray, ECAN staff, ECAN representatives of the Ian McKenzie, the Springfield Residents Association, and also from the Malvern Community Board. And at least I felt, Murray, thank you for that. We're up and running, and I feel it was a very, very constructive meeting. And I thank you for the work that you've done up until now, but don't rest on your laurels. You've got a lot more work yet to do. But it was very progressive, and I do congratulate you. Murray, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. You stole a wee bit of my thunder, but I shall whip through. So, yeah, thank you very much, Bruce, for that introduction. We have set up a working party, which is a Springfield Flooding Working Group, and we're looking at meeting twice yearly. Our first meeting was, of course, last week, as mentioned. The purpose of the group is to advocate for flood interventions within the Springfield Township and surrounds, bringing local knowledge and advice to the design solutions. That's the purpose of the group. So we met last Thursday. We had a great time, actually. It was a good day. The weather was put on for us in Springfield. We met up at 3:30 p.m. and we went through to about 5:30. So let's run through roughly what we talked about, Bruce, if that's okay. Or maybe the members. So for the Springfield Township Committee, we've got Graham Dawson and David Ferry, representation for the Malvern Community Board, Bruce yourself, and also Phil Freeman, which was great. From ECAN, Ian McKenzie, and also Dave Ayers, which we have in our back row supporting today. And then representation from STC, myself, Lane McLaren, Joe Golden, and Kate Atwood. So it was a great team, and yeah, we covered a lot. The first meeting was all about socialising all the previous work done. So we obviously went through introductions, we talked about the purpose of the group, and then we worked through the work completed to date. And there's been quite a lot of work that has been done. So we went through the 2024 LTP submissions and talked to those. The 10-year and 30-year budgets, which have been set by both SDC and Environment Canterbury. There's a number of reports. Tonkin and Taylor did the Springfield flooding assessment, so I was building a model and then calibrating it to the May 2021 event. So we worked through the report and looked at some of the key items of consideration for that. There's also a Tonkin and Taylor report regarding Springfield flood mitigation, a concept design, and we looked at that, and also Bishop's channel widening, so some works within the township. I think one of the key parts of the first committee meeting was the site visits arranged by Graham Dawson. So he took us from the top of the scheme where the bypass could happen all the way through the township where the flooding has occurred and some of the problem areas, so staff had a better understanding of where they were. So the next steps the next meeting will be in February next year, so towards the end of February. So a meeting agenda will be sent out for that. The idea going forward will be that we'll meet as a committee. Those minutes will be then shared to the Springfield Township Committee, and the members from that group can represent and speak to those. And likewise, we'll bring those minutes to this committee as well, and the representation from that group can talk to that going forward. So it was really good, and it was great having ECAN, if I can point to my friend David across the way there again, having them and their support. Environment Canterbury have set up a new district rate looking at flood protection works, particularly for the Malvern River, but potentially expanding those out. And there is money set aside like Malvern for the Springfield Township. So one of the jobs we have is to align those budgets. We're a little bit out of alignment at the moment in terms of when that funding comes available. So we'll be working on that, firming up the proposals, and then maybe there could be some short-term and long-term solutions to that flooding. But I think the key today is just let the community know that both councils take the flooding seriously, and we've got a great platform to move forward with that. Happy to take any questions.
You want to come over to introduce yourself, and I felt having you on board as well, and ECAN, and
Kia ora tātou. Thank you, Mr. Chair. David Ayres, the Rivers Manager at Environment Canterbury. And yeah, just to reiterate what Murray's shared, Environment Canterbury is pretty passionate about supporting flood protection measures across the region. Malvern's first off the block in terms of having a district-wide rate being struck, I guess, to look at flooding in a more holistic sense rather than just targeted response. And to date, we are working through a plan for this year to do some in-stream works up the main tributaries of the Malvern, Haurata, Irwell, Wainewanera, Hawkins, and get some quick wins. Whilst, in parallel, we work on getting or gaining more permissions or consents to do a wider scope of work in those reaches. And so we've got 200,000 in this current financial year. Next year it'll be 300,000. The following year 400,000, and over the following 10 years there's $4.4 million allocated to that work. So we're hoping, in 10 years' time, the waterways will be in a much better state, from a erosion and flooding point of view, but hopefully from a biodiversity, biosecurity point of view as well. In addition to that, sorry, we can ask. So one more thing. In addition to that, Environment Canterbury's got $2.7 million set aside, but not until 2027, and for the following 3 years to 2030, to assist the Malvern District and the community on some of the capital work that might be required in 2 or 3 locations, and Springfield's sort of top of the list there. So that's the timing in ECAN's long-term plan budget. I know it's slightly different in Malvern District's budgets, but I think the key thing, as Murray said, we'll try and align. We've definitely got synergy in terms of collaboration at the moment, and it'll be just aligning the funding to suit when we've got options suggested and stated. So,
David, could you just briefly explain where ECAN's sort of responsibilities lie, and perhaps, you know, and again, Murray, just where council's responsibility arrive. I think as ratepayers, you know that we're paying for it anyway. It doesn't matter. I mean, we pay ECAN and we pay Selwyn. So I think it's just what I got out of it the other day was the fact that we've got two people now working very, very closely together, and which we perhaps haven't had in the past. And so I just briefly explain, you know, where you see ECAN's responsibility is, and Murray, where you see council's responsibility is.
Kick off. Yeah. Generally, Environment Canterbury, if you like, will just kind of set the scene as a regulatory organisation. So it writes plans and enforces rules and policies across the region. The other half of ECAN actually does stuff. You know, we run buses, do biosecurity work, do flood protection work, and the like. And so that's sort of the genre that I'm coming from, I guess, the doing part. And in that basis, with regards to flood protection, we're pretty much user pays. So since the government walked away from doing flood protection work back in 1989, it was left up to those who benefited from the work that had been set up through the catchment boards to carry on that work, abandon it, maintain it, or add to it. And so regional councils were established, and a ratepayer base based on those who are living in the areas that were benefiting from the work were set up to fund an ongoing maintenance program. Most of the schemes that we have, and we have 58 across the region, generally have been in a maintenance phase because a lot of the government could put a lot of money into building the work, but is left up to a few to carry that work on and maintain it. You know, easy if you've got the Waimakariri and Christchurch City to pay for the Waimakariri, but you know, in other smaller areas it gets a bit tricky. So we very much user pays. That leads into, I guess, another point I'm just thinking of, where we've petitioned the government over the last 3 or 4 years for the government to come in and co-invest with us again. They walked away in 1989 saying, hey, a lot of the work we do maintains your bridges, the power supply, the fibre optic, roadways, all that sort of stuff. So how about you pay your share? And in the last 3 years, they did. They contributed 240 odd million across the country, of which Environment Canterbury had a few projects that were funded 60-40. 60% government, 40% from the local share. In addition to that, because of a lot of the flooding we had in 2021, especially Selwyn South, Environment Canterbury decided on some projects that the general rate would fund the local share. And that message is really trying to put out that actually this affects us all. If we want to drive down the road and get to the shop or go down the country, that actually that flood protection work enables us to do that. So we all benefit from it. So that kind of sets the scene where it's at nationally at the moment. We're still petitioning the government hard to co-invest in some critical upgrade or renewal projects or capital works, if you like. But we could be some time away before they're investing in a day-to-day maintenance level. So we want to upgrade and do capital works. If it's in our 10-year funding plan, which Selwyn District now has and Environment Canterbury has, then we can say to the government, hey, here it is. We've already thought about it. It's there. How about you? Do you want to pick this one? And so if that happens, places like Springfield might come earlier than what we've got projected. But you've got to imagine that we've got over 100 of these sort of projects across the region, and prioritising them and fitting them into a long-term plan, takes some sort of suck and see approach sometimes.
Yeah, I'll probably just to summarise that. Council responsibility is very clearly in the townships, where we have a stormwater rate, and as we move away and up the catchment, our responsibility starts to wane. Vice versa, Environment Canterbury is very much focused on the rivers, and as they head towards the townships, they start to wane there as well. So the partnership between SEC and Environment Canterbury allows us to fill those gaps in and make sure we're covering the whole catchment, which has been great having Environment Canterbury along to this working party. I want to say one quick last thing as well. I spoke to Councillor Lydia, who will be part of the working party going forward as well as the councillor representation on the committee. But no, happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Calvin?
Yeah, just briefly, thank you very much, Murray and David, for coming along and give us the information. I think you've answered all my questions, which is a really positive thing. I was going to ask about what funding have you got lined up in what years, and also about what's happening now, quick wins, and what's happening in the near future. So it sounds like we're onto it, and this working group sounds like an awesome way of everybody getting together, collaboration, and getting it sorted for the community. So hopefully I'll cross my fingers, and I'm looking for great results. Thank you.
Yeah, just to cover the question, David covered Environment Canterbury. In terms of Selwyn, in the broader sense, we over the next 10 years, we have just over $15 million for our township improvements. And there's a number of townships. That includes Arthur's Pass, Leeston, Dawson, Lincoln, Horata, Southbridge and Springfield, which has specific funding for that. And so the design portion of that, $320 million is set aside over the 10 years. At the moment, the Springfield bypass work, we've got 4.3 million, but that's outside the 10-year period. So there will be a conversation probably during the next long-term plan about bringing that forward or not.
My name is James Richmond. So just wanted to give you an update of where we're at with the Sheffield pool. So you've got a PowerPoint in front. It'll be up on the screen in a moment. But the background is the pool opened a long time ago now, 70 years ago, and it's had varying operating models in the past. So it's seen direct council operation, committee operation, and community operation in the past. In recent seasons, it's been lifeguarded. Part of the reason it's lifeguarded is really down to the depth profile of the pool and some of the activity taking place in that facility. And a visit, I believe, in 2016 by the Audit and Risk Committee led to the facility being lifeguarded. Discussions have been kind of floating around closure since 2017, based on the state of the pool and future strategic direction on the pool. The pool is now clearly at end of life. The pool tub is needing quite a significant amount of work. And the Sheffield Memorial Pool was part of the long-term plan. So we'll work through exactly where we've come from now. So the Sheffield Pool was part of the long-term plan in terms of should the pool remain open or should the pool shut? It was a really simple question that had basically a yes/no answer. And the consultation was based around that because we didn't actually have a clear point of where the pool could go to. So we really wanted to hear back from the community about what could happen. As part of that, 61% of respondents supported the closure across Selwyn District, with 39% not supporting closure. That was, just to be clear, that was throughout the whole of Selwyn District. Obviously, locally, there was a little bit more support for keeping the pool open, and as things got a bit more spread out or a bit further away from that facility, closure was more widely supported. The consultation did not ask for divestment as in terms of the local community into a local community group, and that's because that kind of emerged as part of the consultation, as part of the long-term plan. Where the decision that was made in the long-term plan was that we agreed to keep the pool open for the 24-25 swim season. So the pool will be run this year. It'll open show weekend and close March 16th. And during that season, we will do some targeted consultation around what the future of that pool will be, whether it goes to a community entity that's already formed or going to be created, or the pool is going to be closed for good and demolished. So that's the current situation as it stands. What we're hoping to do is run a consultation from the 16th of November right and through to the end of January. There'll be hearings and deliberations in March 2025. And then a decision is required no later than the 30th of June 2025. So really want to be able to work through whatever legal issues or transition issues that might be brought up during that consultation period. We've already done some pre-consultation meetings, which have been really useful in sort of guiding some of the issues that might be around. We already knew largely around age and condition of the asset. That's probably going to be a key concern of the community moving forward. How are we going to run this facility that is in need of significant investment in the medium and short term? The land issues around ownership are fairly well understood, but it's still a bit of a challenge legally in terms of 4 different parcels of land ownership that ground sits on, and council only owning 2 of them, but there's some ways around that. And then community alignment. There's some slightly different views in the community around how this should be attacked, how it should be divided, how it should be operated, and some of the concerns around risk level, financial prudency, and that sort of thing. So those are the sort of things that we're looking at the moment. Meetings will be held with Board of Trustees in the coming months around their views as well. At the moment, the Sheffield Sports Society is being talked to, and the Locals Club are being talked to, but there's other meetings planned as we move forward before consultation goes out wider. The purpose of me being here is really just to inform you of what the direction is that we're starting to move down. The consultation will be out there, so you can have conversations in the community. But also, if there's anything that you want as part of the consultation that may help inform some of the decision making around this, be really useful to provide us with some feedback at some point.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Now, I know we've got Brian here. Brian. I'm happy, James and I met. No, but I mean, I'm going to allow you, if you wish to ask a question, like the board. No, the board will do the question for a start. But if you wanted to make any comment, I will allow you to do so. I'm happy with where. No, that's fine. I appreciate that. Thank you, Brian. Kelvin.
Yeah, thanks, James, for giving us a good update. I think, again, you've done a really good job in answering all my questions, because my main question was, what is the situation at the moment? Is there going to be consultation? What's the process forward to this community-run legal entity? So you've answered that, and I will personally be involved in the consultation anyway, because I think it's really important. And I'd just like to make a comment on it. It's really good to see the council, and particularly the councillors, listening to the community and responding and putting things together. And actually, it's so important to Sheffield, that pool. And it's really good to see the council listening, and particularly the councillors. I'm looking at Bob because he's only one here at the moment, but it's really good to see that. And I really appreciate that, and the community board appreciate that, I'm sure. I'm not talking for all of them, but that's
okay. Thank you, Kelvin. Sian.
Thank you, James, for the update. That's awesome. I just had a couple of questions. The first one is, how will the community consultation be communicated, and what does that consultation process look like?
Yeah, so we're still working through that a little bit. That's sort of part of the pre-consultation. One of the nice things about pre-consultation is it does start to get the message, I guess, out in the community that we're looking at doing this. We will advertise though, most likely through mail drop, in the Malvern News, and through school community notice boards and that sort of thing. So we're trying to get as deep into the community as we can. We'll probably still do some stuff on social media and other things and the Selwyn Times to cover off our legislative requirements, but largely it's going to be targeted into Sheffield, Springfield as well, and we may even have a drop box in at Darfield Pool or Library. So there'll definitely be a drop box in at Sheffield Pool for people to put their feedback in. The other part of your question, sorry.
It was what is the process, but I'm pretty sure you've somewhat answered that.
Yeah, so there'll be Dropbox process, but also have your say online form as well. So there'll be a couple of options around that. As we progress, it may become evident that a public meeting or something like that does need to be run. It's going to be interesting to see sort of how that progresses and how that might be facilitated, I suppose. So we'll work through that as we go, but I think that maybe as we get sort of 3 or 4 weeks into the consultation period, that will potentially become evident as to, in terms of does a public meeting need to be held so that we can understand, have a bit more understanding around the risks associated with this transition, and how that can be managed and who is going to actually run the place. Because I suppose what we heard a lot of during the LTP consultation is give the pool back to the community, but we also didn't see 50 hands up saying give it to us, we'll all work together and do it. So we're just trying to identify who those people are.
Are there any further questions? James, just push a button on that. That's it.
You noted how there was more people in Sheffield that would like the pool to stay open. Did you know the percentage of how many wanted that to stay open and how many wanted that to close in Sheffield?
I can't give you that number off the top of my head. I'm sorry. I can. There is a breakdown that was published as part of some of the LTP decision making, and I can certainly provide that back through the chair if you'd like.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Denise, thank you for coming. In case people don't know, this is Denise Kidd. Her job in council is the executive director of community services. So this largely falls into her portfolio. So we do thank you, Denise, again for coming here this time. Is there anything further you want to add from what James has said?
No, just as you said, it sits within the portfolio of community services and facilities, and I'm very aware of the importance of the Malvern Community Board, so I was keen to be part of this, hearing the presentation and the feedback that James got. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you. We as a community board appreciate too. You spoke to us last month on different things which we asked. I feel that the relationship we have now with staff at council is, I'm going to say, is greatly improved, shall we say? And I think very much to the better. And I thank both of you, Denise and James, for bringing us forward. We look forward to further opportunities of speaking together. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Denise. Thanks, David. Are you going to slip away? Thanks, David. Thanks for coming. Right now, financial reporting. We'll get a motion to receive the financial statements in front of us currently, get moved and seconded, and then I'll get Thomas and Sarah to come up to present. So can we have a motion that the financial report currently before you, so we can have a mover and seconder of that? Thank you, Sean. Seconder, Calvin. Okay, so that we've got it moved and seconded. Now we're in a position where we can discuss it. And Thomas and Sarah, you can put the points forward, and I'm quite sure there'll be questions from the board in regards to perhaps a number of factors. So Sarah or Tom or Thomas, which one?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will go first. And
Look,
then,
thank you, Sarah.
Thomas will follow up. Thank you. So a quick summary. I know you've all read the report, but a quick summary. So the year-to-date revenue.
Just interrupt you a moment. Have we got some spare agendas, but perhaps we could give to some of our people over there if we, just to keep them au fait with everything? If anybody would like an agenda. I know we bring a couple, but thanks, Charlotte. Thank you. You'll probably have to share what we are going to give you, but yeah. Thank you, Charlotte. Sarah.
Thank you. So I'll just do a quick summary. The year-to-date revenue for year-to-date September is below budget by $540, and that's due to the timing of collections. So that's expected to recover during the financial year to be on target. Yes.
Can you push your microphone? Sorry, can you push your microphone? You know, us old people hard of hearing, I do apologise, but at least I can see you.
Okay.
Thank you, Sarah.
Very good. And the year-to-date operating expenses for the period ended 30th of September was below budget by $1,000. So that leaves the Malvern Community Board in a year-to-date favourable to budget by $554. Now, the things to note that we put in the report were where you were adverse to budget were in the advertising. The advertising was for the MCB awards and brochures, and in general expenses. There was $500 that you chose to award to the Darfield High School for their prize giving. Okay, so year to date, the reserve balance is at $79,428. So I'll pause there. Is there any questions on the financials? And then we'll move on to the updated June year-end financials.
Do you want to take questions on this first lot?
It may,
Would
if
you-
that's okay with you.
Okay, certainly. Questions?
I haven't got any, sorry, being specifically looking at these figures for a number of months, 2 years, in fact. I haven't got any specific questions at the moment because you seem to have accommodated all of my previous questions last month. But I would like to I will double check them and just make sure that everything looks in order. You've explained it very well, so I'm all clear with what the numbers are. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I move on through the reports, we provided you with an updated year-end position for the financial year ended 30th of June. There was a question raised here, and we have actioned that there was some remuneration back payments to be made to the members of the community board. So that has been done, and that has changed the closing balance of your reserves to $88,982 for the year ended 30th of June.
Yeah, I'd just like to confirm, yeah, I agree with that in that it was something like, what's that, 89, 92. So it's now 88, which is where I found a discrepancy. So that's in a correct position as well. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so if we could move on now, there was a question raised in the last meeting about the targeted rates charge, and I'm going to hand over to Thomas to take you through that.
Yes, hi everyone. As at the previous meeting, there was a question asked about an update to the Malvern Community Board targeted rate charge. The report that we've kind of provided is a brief history on the targeted rate over the past 5 or so years. The key points that we've come up with are that the targeted rate is intended to cover the Malvern Community Board's operating costs for the year. Since 2021, 2020/21 financial year, the targeted rate of $44 per property has resulted in a surplus. And that is seen in the Appendix 1 of the report. As a result of the representation review in 2022, the ward boundaries changed, as we all know, including adding West Malvern into the Malvern ward. This resulted in approximately 3,300 properties or additional ratepayers being added to the wards. From 1st of July 2023, the targeted rate was reduced in the 2023-24 annual plan to $24, with the intention to gradually reduce the operating surplus to net zero over 10 years. The Malvern Community Board rate is forecast to increase $1 for the next 2 years and then stay at $27 for the remaining of the LTP. And any future overspend that the Malvern Community Board makes will decrease the operating surplus further than budgeted. And once the operating surplus is depleted, the targeted rate will need to increase to meet the operating net costs. Thank you, and if you have any questions.
Sean?
So if you could just explain, we had a higher targeted rate, which meant that we had a greater surplus, and now the concern is that because we've dropped the targeted rate, that surplus is going to run out and we're not going to have money to operate. I don't quite understand how that works.
I'll chip in. So there was a number of questions asked, Chan, at the last meeting about wanting to understand the history of how the rating was set, understanding what the story was with regards to the surplus. So the intention was for Thomas to bring the key pointers around the fact that the rate changed, that because they to utilize the surplus, the current targeted rate sits at this over a period of time. So it's really just giving that backstory and just explaining over the period of the long-term plan, the surplus is continually nudged down over that 10-year period. But of course, somewhere during the long-term plan, we will have to have a look at what the new rate may need to be set. And the new representation review or any subsequent representation review will enable that, depending on whether there's any boundary changes or not.
Thank you, that makes sense.
Kelvin?
Yeah, thanks, Tom and Sarah, for giving us the answer to the question. And this is the first time we've seen this detail, obviously. So, and also we have the representation review underway, which I understand the initial proposal is not confirmed, or the updated initial proposal is not confirmed until Wednesday's meeting. So we're actually don't know where we're heading at the moment. And that representation review is not finally confirmed until April next year. So that gets very close to the end of our term as the community board members. And it's the first time that I've seen that there may be a consideration of an increase in the community board targeted rate. And I also understand that we are one of the few community boards that are funded by a targeted rate, and that's mainly because I understand that we're one of the few community boards that are the only one in a district, where the 3 other wards haven't got a community board at the moment. So this question of targeted rate or not, and the whole situation needs to be we need to work on it as we go through the process of our current representation review, and as Sharon says, any future ones. So this information is great because it gives us the information we need to get our financial projections and reports better for the future, so that we can see where we're going and what we're spending and what we're not, and where we can contribute to the community. So what I'd like to do is actually propose an alternative motion or maybe an amendment
Well, just, we could do it as part of this.
Yeah.
And accept it. We've only got the motion so that we can,
Just to
so that
accept
we
it for
can discuss
information.
it
Yeah.
at the present time.
Yeah.
So, you know, we can alter that at the finish, Colin, won't
Yeah,
you?
okay, thank you, thank you.
So what's the alternative that you would wish to have?
I'd like to put an alternative motion that we accept this for information, which is really good. And that we delay, that we, as a community board, produce a full report, that's us as a board, back to our next community board meeting, so that we have a full understanding and we can actually ask you some other questions as well, just to make sure everybody, I'm talking about all board members, are fully aware of what this could mean or not mean. And also the representation review will have occurred by then as well.
I can take that as an addendum.
Yeah.
To this, that we've got the motion before us to accept. We can put your motion in as an addendum to this.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion?
Depends how good it is.
And rather than needing to amend the recommendation, which is around receiving, you can put in an additional recommendation. And I'm not entirely sure, forgive me, Calvin, is it you're saying that the board will produce some finances to the finance team? Is that what you're indicating? That's what I thought I heard you say.
Yeah, you're basically suggesting that we have an input into it. That's as I understand it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. We will just put some figures there, which we think, as a board, we would make suggestions. That's what we're basically saying.
I'm not entirely sure. Are you talking about the annual plan and the finances for next year's finances and wanting to have an annual plan discussion because the budget is set for this financial year? So I'm presuming that, and you would have input into the annual plan budget. Is that what you mean?
Yes, essentially, yeah. I want the board to have opportunity to look at the figures in detail and just see where they're, and then have input into the annual plan discussions, yeah.
Yeah.
Which we have that opportunity, don't we?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify what you were saying.
Yeah.
So actually, what it more than anything, not telling you that you don't need another recommendation, but what you're noting is that the board will work with council staff around the annual plan budget for the following year.
Based on these figures that we're now first aware of.
That's right.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
Yeah.
what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. So really, it's only, he doesn't have to move the motion accordingly.
No. No, you don't need, because the recommendation covers that, and it is given as part of the annual plan budget that we will work with the team.
I think as long as we take note of what you're trying to perceive, we don't need a motion over and above that. You're going to make a recommendation.
Yeah, I'll remove that motion. Yeah.
I don't think you don't need a motion. We don't need a motion. Councillor, you want to turn your thing on? Oh.
Actually, that will all happen when the annual plan comes up.
Correct.
The community board's always worked in the past with staff to come up with an annual plan. So I believe that will happen automatically.
If we put it together.
Yeah.
No, wait a minute. Sorry, did you want to repeat that? What you're saying?
Takes a bit to warm up.
Yeah, takes a wee bit to warm up, so they tell me, Bob. So you know, it's like us. It's like you and I. We take a wee bit to warm up.
What I was saying to tell everybody is that before when the annual plan is sorted out by council, the community board always have a say.
Yes.
On what they think it should be, and then there's usually a meeting with the board and these figures will come up, and then they're put into the annual plan, which has already been done for this year.
Correct.
So there's really nothing you can do until the annual plan is done.
Thank you. Sharon, do you want to say something?
Yes.
Okay. Calvin?
Could I just make a comment on that? That's awesome to hear. We're going to have input to the annual plan. And that's the process I understand should be underway. I can confirm that last annual plan, we didn't have that input, which is, that is where we're
Correct.
our concerns coming. So this is really
Correct.
awesome. Future going forward is we're all part of the same financial system. So it's
Yeah.
good. Thank you.
Just with the last one was done with David Ward
Correct.
at a meeting, so it was done with the community board. And because the figures that the community board had discussed weren't actually finished with, but it was actually discussed.
Okay, we won't
Can I-
make comment on that because I
Oh,
think,
I will actually, that was for 2023, 2024.
Yeah.
Correct. So for this current
Yeah.
annual plan, we didn't have any input into it.
No.
Hello? Okay.
right, is there any further questions? Okay, we'll put the motion now then that we accept the report. All in favour will please say aye. Against, carried. Again, Sarah and Thomas, thank you for your time. We do appreciate it. Thank you. Right. Okay. If you wish to retire, you may, but I mean, if you want to sit through, we'll be right. Thank you. Okay, all the best. Thank you. Right, we'll move now on to the next item on the agenda, the public forum. Harvey, you wish to make a comment to us? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce, and just like to congratulate the community board on the success of our representation review. And I'd also like to thank them for nominating Erin from the Residents Association for the Community Service Award. That was appreciated. First of all, with my hat as Malvern Community Patrol, we would like the board to ask the council to reconsider the CCTV cameras for the rec centre. As a community patrol, we have the police support that those cameras would provide a very useful service. The art display that they had on there the other last week for the art week, we found the back door of the building wide open in the middle of the night, and the value of the artwork was in the hundreds of thousands. The cost of this of these cameras is around $4,000. The council actually spent more than that on reinstalling the speed indicator device on Greendale Road. So I don't think the money should be a major issue, but I would like this board to ask the council to reconsider that. From the Residents Association, we're concerned about the rubbish situation in Darfield. One with the new night market, which is tremendously successful. Obviously, it's being run privately, but I did notice when we were there the other night, there were a huge number of people there. There were over 200 that I saw. A lot of families. It's becoming a great Saturday night activity for Darfield. I think we should wondering if the board can give it some sort of support in terms of recycling rubbish, particularly. I noticed they had a 44-gallon drum there, but all the rubbish was going into, including huge numbers of pizza boxes. Now that sort of stuff is ideal for recycling. I think that the organizer of that privately is trying to organize something with one of the bin contractors, but obviously it'll just be all dumped as waste rubbish. If the board was able to consider something in terms of providing better recycling facilities down there. The other area that we're also concerned about is the Pearson Reserve. That's the reserve opposite the Darfield High School. We some time ago did a big cleanup and found a lot of rubbish there because people are using that as a picnic area. We believe it could be developed more definitively as a picnic area, because if the council looked to put some tables in there, a set of recycling bins and rubbish bins like the three that you, or two or three that you have, I think that would be a good asset to the community, and it's obviously being stopped by a lot of travellers and that sort of thing. So that's a major area that we feel.
Could I just, are there bins there currently?
nothing there.
So, okay.
Yeah, and people just dump their
Yeah,
rubbish.
thank
I
you.
mean, the council attitude
Yep.
is that they should take their rubbish away, but that just doesn't happen. Let's be realistic. The other item that I want to talk about is obviously Christmas and the Santa's Grotto. We as a Darfield Residents Association, a little bit concerned about the changes to the financing. At this stage, of course, we need to be committing ourselves to advertising for all the Christmas activities. We can't do that, of course, until we've got some funding certainty, and it doesn't look like we're going to get any sort of funding certainty until December, which is too late from our perspective. I would like to know, or does the board aim to continue with Santa's Grotto this year?
Yeah, I think but financially, at this stage, you know, we fully support it. But until we sort of get our finances where we know exactly where we are, and we'll know that by next meeting, I'm quite sure. I don't know whether Calvin's prepared to put a figure on it yet at this stage, or whether we leave it and definitely let you know once we've done our.
There is some meeting on Wednesday, isn't there, about how we can apply for funding?
Yes.
Council, I'll be going to that, but
because I was going to just ask Sharon to make comments, because I know when you rang me, I rang Sharon. I got Sharon, and I know she's been in touch with you, so perhaps she can bring you up to date.
Right.
More so.
Thank you, Bruce. And I was going to bring you up to date on all of the conversations back and forth that Harvey has raised. The new assessment panel has been established for looking at funds, and you're absolutely correct, that does meet on Wednesday, and they will be reviewing applications, I believe, that have come forward. So, and that will be in a public meeting. I think they're also defining some of the criteria, but they will have probably slightly more regular meetings, noting that they've been a couple of months behind being set up. So yeah, so you're correct there. With regards to the CCTV, Harvey asked the question via John Very. John came to me. So as part of the long-term plan, councillors resolved they weren't budgeted. So CCTV was not budgeted across the district in the long-term plan. And councillors resolved that staff will take into consideration specific improvements sought by submitters in developing future work programmes for renewals and improvements dependent on budget being available and being prioritised. So that was the response that came back from councillors with regards to the requests for CCTV. And please bearing in mind that the requests for CCTV came from a broader group other than Darfield residents. So that was a catch-all for all CCTV requests. With regards to the night market, I think Andrew Boyd has been in contact with you, Harvey.
Basically all he said was that it's up to the individuals that run the thing to organise it.
Yeah, so the challenge is that it's a regular ongoing commercial activity.
Right.
So that does not, and I think he stated that in the email to you. So actually, in terms of like any markets that are commercially run, in terms of some of the farmers markets, given it's a commercial activity, they have the responsibility around the removal of rubbish.
Right.
And Andrew has extended his offer of support around giving advice and guidance around appropriate bins, etc. But given that it is a formal commercial activity, then they should wrap that up as part of that activity around this disposing of waste.
Yeah. I just wonder if we can look at perhaps more recycle bins in the main street of Darfield, because the rubbish, there is, I think, two that I know near the jail. There's another general rubbish, just one round one in that area, but it is a fairly popular area for people. Is there a thought of looking at more recycling bins in Darfield?
So in terms of the long-term plan and the recycling, there was a particular allocated fund. I'll ask actually Murray on my behalf to just connect in with Andrew Boyd as to whether there is any funding to put in any additional. I'm not sure off the top
Okay.
of my head.
And would that also include the park, the Pearson Reserve?
I would think that might sit under the reserves team, but again, we'll connect
Okay.
with via Murray as to
Okay,
what the
appreciate
intentions
that.
are there,
Yeah.
Harvey.
Okay, that's good. Well, the only other question is, can the community board provide Father Christmas for the week? We, I asked if the community board can provide Father Christmas for the grotto for the week.
Community board,
Yes.
people sitting around the table.
I'll leave that to the committee to decide.
Did you want to say?
Can I comment on Harvey's questions? The CCTV cameras at the rec centre. Fortunately, I didn't make it to Art Week. I was intending to, but I had animal movements to sort out, so I didn't make it. But yeah, I think it's really important that we support you in that. So I'll make sure that the board discusses that and we push it forward.
Appreciate that.
So that's that one. Recycling commercial activity, I think again, the board should support that. That's my personal view and we'll discuss it. And I was actually in Darfield on Saturday night and I had fish and chips. And I did try to find a bin to put my fish and chip papers in with my wife. And I thought it should be recycled, but there was just a normal bin there.
Yeah.
So that actually came up this weekend for me personally. Pearson Reserve is similar, that we should do that as well. And Christmas in Darfield, I've got my bulk croppers here today and we're going to try and get into the Darfield jail and get Bob's trestle tables back.
They might as well stay there.
So we're going to try and get back into the jail,
Right.
but my understanding is that last year we provided funding from our discretionary fund. As you know, doesn't exist. It's now dealt with in a different process, which unfortunately for Christmas in Darfield is actually the timescales are not quite soon enough. So have you put in an application?
No, this is what
Right.
I was waiting till Wednesday to find out
Right,
what we need to do to, in fact, we're aiming to do the same as we did last year, basically have the grotto for the week. We have a Christmas light trail, which we organise a sponsorship for. And then we have the Christmas extravaganza on the Saturday, which we last year got money from council for.
Yeah. And you also have the free raffle, which is supported by local businesses, I believe. Yeah. No, awesome. So we will, as a board, or I personally will, if the board don't support me, is I'll try and make sure that process, I'll try and be here Wednesday, so that I can just make sure that we accelerate that process if necessary to make sure that you've got the funds committed as soon as we can.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how I can do that, but I'll do my best efforts.
The other thing that we would like to consider is that because these are annual events like Christmas, we also have the multicultural dinner each year, that they become recognised as annual events by council and automatically we don't have to go through the rigmarole every year of wondering whether or not we're going to get approval for them. That they could be the same as some of the ones that are obviously held at Rolleston, you know, and they're on the council agenda basically. Is that possible?
I'm not entirely sure which events you're talking about, but I think it would be fair to say that as part of consolidating funding for all funding requests will be reviewed and there won't necessarily be a given that each event is going to be funded year on year.
Okay. Yep.
Bob, did you want to say?
Yeah, just on the TV cameras, I was of the understanding that council was going through or was going to do a whatever to actually look at what we're doing, because it came up a few years ago at council and there was privacy issues and all sorts of things, and the council were going to look at a policy on it in their own reserves.
Yep. So in terms of we have got body cams on, so there's policies around that. So there is a policy would be required, but what I read out was the result of the LTP final outcome, and it was about budget and whether funding could be ascertained from elsewhere, but there was no specific funding in the long-term plan for CCTV.
One of the things that I thought was it wasn't so much the funding, it was whether there was going to be a policy on whether council have them on their own reserves and where they have them before it got to a funding stage.
Yeah, the LTP was definitely, the language was about whether the funding was available. The policy is not so much of a challenge in terms of, given that we now have body cams, there's a very clear policy around body cams, so that would translate across. I think this is purely about funding now.
Any other questions, Sian?
Yeah, sorry. So in September, we received an email from John Berry, and it was forwarded on from Harvey, a request around public liability. Have we discussed that as a board? If not, could we please get that minuted that we need
Yeah, as
to
I understand
discuss
that-
public liability?
As I understand, last year, you took the public liability on, didn't you? Harvey?
Yes, I just took the liability on, didn't bother with any insurance, no. But what we are doing, we're actually talking to the lady with the light market because we believe that may be a better venue from our perspective, and we don't need to worry about public liability because it was going to cost a minimum of $500 for a public liability insurance for a 3 or 4 hour session with children.
Okay, Sharon.
It's any help. Public liability is going to be reviewed across council. So there's a paper Denise has got, has taken carriage of that. And over the next 6 months, there will be a review of how public liability is, what it is in terms of policy and what that looks like in terms of cost.
Yeah, but then that doesn't get over this year, though, does it? I mean,
Well, we're hopeful to have it at the night market centre this year.
oh, okay, so yeah,
We haven't had confirmation of that yet.
right.
But obviously, we're going to have to apply to council for funds for public liability insurance if we need to have it at the venue.
So
that we had
if
last year.
everything's held on council land, does the council not have a public liability for that or not?
I'm not an expert on the public liability. I can't answer that.
No, we were told we had to get our own public liability insurance because it wasn't being run as a council project. We were running it as a resident association
Right.
project, despite the fact that this board provided the funding for it.
Yes.
So whether there's a way around that in terms of the board assuming responsibility for the project and then being covered by the public liability, by the council's public liability project insurance, but we can actually run it on behalf of this board. That
Sian?
is a way around it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Sian?
we discussed this at our wrap-up session at
Yes.
the beginning of the year
Yeah.
with the Christmas committee and DRA, and then we discussed it as a board. And I believe we had agreed. I can't quite remember if Phil and John were on board then, so we might have to have another conversation. But I believe we agreed to be the umbrella, so that our public liability covered the event if they were to have it in council property.
Right, okay, well, look, it's just something we better keep an eye on.
Yeah, just a question.
Council.
Just Phil asked the same thing. We don't have.
No,
as
no,
far as I'm concerned, the community board.
Yeah, we don't.
It's well, there's no account shows up for it, so.
Yeah, what I need to have a look at is to see if
Yeah.
public liability falls under the catch-all. And again, as I was referencing, we're actually reviewing public liability across the whole of council. I think over the years it's morphed into lots of different interpretations. There's lots of different policies, and actually what we need to do is tidy it up. However, I acknowledge that that will not help you potentially for December, but it's quite a large topic to actually have to work through.
Okay, we'll have to wait and see.
Right, so it's something I think we should keep an eye on though, because while John might say that we've got it, I don't think we have got it personally as a community board. But anyway, let's look at it. The main thing is that we've got one way or the other, we've got to make sure that you're covered. Okay. Okay, thanks Harvey for that. Thanks for your presentation. We move on, confirmation of minutes, they'll be before you. Is somebody prepared to move? Thank you, Phil. Seconder, Calvin, open for discussion. Is there anybody wants to alter anything in there? I've gone through them. I felt that they're okay. If there's not, I'm going to put the motion. All in favour that I sign the minutes as a true and accurate record of our last meeting. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Okay, now if you move on to the recommendations, the presentation points that we asked for.
It's just for noting.
Yes, yep. Is there anything there in that anybody wants any answers on, or have you got the answers that you wanted? Pardon? Yeah, the action.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's two parts. The
Yeah.
first point, 6.1, was actually the bullet points
Yeah.
from Denise. So that was there for you to note
Yes.
as part of your minutes. And then,
And then the other one.
and then moving on to the actions, I'm
Correct.
happy to talk through.
And the actions
I think
that are
we
happening.
should just run through the actions one by one, just to check that we're all in agreement.
Right, yeah.
So action number 1 has been covered off by
Yes, it has.
presentation of staff. Action number 2 has been covered off by the formation of the working group. And alternative venues for board meetings. Thank you, Charlotte.
Yep.
She has put forward some different options for the final
Yeah,
meeting.
for the different meetings. I would bring you to your attention though, that if we're going to have youth people on it, we've got to realise that they can't travel. So that's the only thing. While it's going to be very nice to go to these different areas, let's just make sure that everybody's in agreement that we are going there. Okay. But
And-
thank you, Charlotte, because these were the areas that were available for our 2 next meetings. Yeah, we've got 2 left, haven't we? One
left.
left. We have 2.
And then the final one was with regards to John's query about the activation station at Darfield Library, and there's a written explanation there from the media team, and they've indicated they're also happy to take an advice on preference for activation station removal.
Yep.
And so if the board wishes to provide some advice back, that's and it doesn't have to be at this meeting, that
No,
can
it
be at a
doesn't.
later stage.
But they are asking if we've got any other suggestions. Right, we'll now move on to correspondence. We've got no correspondence. Charlotte, have we? Move on to reports. I'll move my report at this stage. Seconder. Thank you. Been moved and seconded. I'd only make comment to one thing is, well, of course, you know, the success that was achieved. I felt that was excellent. I thoroughly supported the council on their recommendations. And the other highlighter was the awards evening the other night. It went exceedingly well. I've had most of the recipients have rung me just to thank for the awards. Some of them said to me, "Why were we nominated?" And but I said, really, it was up to your community to nominate you, and they did. So they were very gratified, and I thought it went off very well. And I thank my fellow board members for their participation in it. Any discussion on my report? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Move on to the next report from Sian. Right, is there a seconder? Thank you, Calvin. It's open for discussion. Sian, is there any point you want to make forward? Thank you. Thank you. Could I just make comment? I knew Sian was having difficulties. She was in touch with me and we were there supporting her. So it's good to see you back there. It really is.
I
Yeah.
realised my mic wasn't on, sorry.
Sorry?
I realised my mic wasn't on that whole time, sorry. I do want to say thank you, for your support, and yours, Calvin, too. And Bob and Lydia for your support throughout the time that I've been going through what I've been going through. Thank you for your patience and your grace, actually. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Onward and upward. So I'll put the motion. All in favour that we accept the report, please say aye. Against, carried. Kelvin,
Okay, I'll move my report.
seconder. Sian,
Okay, just run down really quickly. MCB workshop in Rolleston, talking about our delegations. I still think we've got a lot of work to do on that. Our meeting in Springfield. I went to the Kirwee War Memorial site and met the mayor and the awesome community there. And unfortunately, they're not sat here now. But we've got our meeting at 7:30 tonight, so I'll be going along to see them. They're doing an awesome job getting the funds together, and the mayor is helping with that as well, publicity wise, etc. So that's really awesome to see. Malvern Community Board Awards, I'll concur with Bruce. Awesome event, and it was great to see our community out there. And I didn't know how many awesome people we'd actually got in the community until I listened to everything that was said about them. So it's awesome. West Melton District Residents Association, that's just the normal meeting. Council deliberations, I went to those on the representation review, and the comment is it's awesome to see the councillors' support in keeping the community board and listening, as well as increasing the number of councillors and listening to the community again, which is really good. And I've been to a Lincoln Residents Group meeting as well with Bruce, just to look at the rest of the district and see what people are doing there. They requested we attended just to talk to them. So just a quick verbal report. Financial statements included in the agenda. I think we've said enough about the financial statements, so that's fine. Kirwee Community Association update. They have a number of items that there's still about 4 outstanding, and they've got a couple of others. And their meeting, because of Labour Day, is actually tonight. So I was hoping to go to their meeting and then come to this meeting. But so next meeting, I'll provide a full report from them, and I'll get any questions to council before our meeting so we can get some answers. And then the final one is delegations. Like I said, we've still got a lot of work to do on our delegations, current and future. That's it really. That's all my comments.
thank you. Is there any questions? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Phil, would you like to move your report, please? A seconder? Seconder. Thank you, Calvin.
Report meetings and so forth, and one comment to make was I was quite disappointed in the author of the representation review. I don't know how someone can get so far out in a report. Luckily, the councillors.
Thank you. Any discussion on Phil's report? Calvin, you got your light on. Do you want to correct?
Oh, sweet.
Okay. If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Councillor Mugford.
Yeah. The main thing has been the representation review, which, to be quite honest, is.
Oh, just a minute. I'm sorry, Calvin. Sorry, Bob. John Very's report is before us. Somebody prepared to move that? Phil, seconder? Okay, I don't feel there's any discussion needed on that at this stage. There's a number of points I believe we want to take up with him, and I'd rather do it while he's here. That's my opinion. Calvin?
Yeah, can I just make a comment on that? John obviously wrote his report.
Correct.
Prior to the decision in council last week.
Yes.
I have managed to communicate with him and
Right.
informed him of that, of which he is very pleased. He said it will make his holiday much better. So I agree with you, Bruce. I think we should leave it on the table.
Yep.
And we should get a supplementary report from
Yep.
John at the next meeting.
Yep.
Because he will have changed some of the stuff.
Correct,
maybe.
correct.
So, yeah.
Sian, did you want to make comment? Oh, that's okay. No, I agree. I think there's points in there that should be discussed, but I don't think it's right or proper. And my suggestion as chair is wait until he's present and then we can discuss it.
Right.
Sian?
There is just one item on here that I've noticed, issues raised by constituents, number one, mobility scooter access. And he said, I was invited to a meeting with SDC roading staff who indicated a response would be provided for the November 2024 meeting. And I'm just raising that to ensure that that's still in play. Cool, thank you.
That's part of John's. Right, okay. Right. Okay, I'll move the motion that we accept the report. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carry. Bob?
Yeah, representation review's been the big thing that's been on, I think. Councillors have actually given community board a lifeline to actually to go into the future. And I'm really pleased to see that the community board is involved with the Springfield flooding and that sort of group and the awards night. And I think that I've had several people ring me up and say, what does the community board do? What are we paying this money for? So I think that's the question that I'm asking all of you at the of what you're actually going to be doing in the future. And those are the sort of things that make a big difference in your scene in the community. Yep. So that's my challenge, actually, that we end up with a community board that's serving our community, and the community actually know who you are and what you're doing. So yep. I think, you know, other than that, I think it's going in the right direction on what you're doing, but I think it needs a lot more of it.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor. You and I have been nodding heads for quite some time, and I do believe that I wouldn't say it's a lifeline. I would say it's people have realised that it is a necessity, and I think we've got to prove that now. It's as simple as that.
If it was a necessity, we would have 4 of them.
Well, that's still being debated, and I think part of the council agreement was that we look at forming community boards in other areas. And it's something that I've been to a number of meetings in other wards currently with wanting to know what a community board is, what you do, etc. So I think, I think we've got a different feeling now within the council itself.
Just one other thing, that in one of the submissions from another community board, the point that was made out in that quite strongly is that you don't need delegations to serve your community.
Correct.
And I think that's something else that really needs looking at. I think community boards have been in Malvern for a lot of years, and they've survived all those years. They've had very few delegations in all of those years. And so I think it's a matter of actually getting out there and finding what the community want and working on it.
Thank you, Councillor Mugford. Thank you for that. Chief Executive's report, starting on page 48. Sharon.
You want to move?
Oh, yes. No, yes, of course. I will move Sharon's report. Is there a seconder? Councillor Mugford. It's open now for your comment.
Yep, thanks, Bruce. Basically, we've got a lot of reform occurring at the moment coming out of the coalition government, and the Resource Management Act is certainly one of the largest portions of reform. So what we're working through is the council team of understanding what the proposed changes are and the impact that would have. And it's fairly comprehensive. We're also expecting other legislation to come out which will complement the Resource Management Act. So as we understand that, the team will provide further updates both into council, and those updates will also be provided through to the Malvern Community Board. And secondly, the Canterbury Regional Public Transport Plan, for your information, is a copy of the submission that will be submitted and will have retrospective endorsement, hopefully at council tomorrow or Wednesday even.
Could I just ask one question, Sharon? The government's proposal to fast track a number of things through, do you see that a problem that then, as a council, you have to implement some of those things? You haven't really got a hell of a lot to say. I shouldn't have said that word. You haven't got, you know, I mean, they're going to just say, well, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, the projects that are being fast tracked have been declined by council.
That's what I thought.
And declined for very specific reasons in terms of infrastructure and whether the infrastructure exists. So the current fast track projects that are going through will require significant investment into infrastructure because that infrastructure does not currently exist. And so that will create some challenges.
So who's, you know, I know you can't give the answer now, but with these fast tracks that's happening, and I know reading through, there are a number of things that our council has opposed. So who's going to have the final say? If government are going to say, well, this is what's going to happen, it's going to, and council in their own wisdom, say that we don't think this is to the benefit of the Selwyn people, who's going to have the final say?
So the final bill has not yet been through Parliament, and there are a group of commissioners, and so we'll wait to see what the process is around who has the final say, who picks the commissioners, etc. So that's not entirely clear at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And the other one is the public transport plan too. Again, what's going to happen there if the council say, well, look, we ECAN or regional council are going to say, we can't afford any more funding. Where does that leave our council too? I mean, again, it all comes back onto the ratepayers. So, again, how are we going to overcome these problems?
Well, the regional transport plan is tied up into Waka Kotahi funding,
Correct.
and we know that the Waka Kotahi funding has been reprioritised to specific areas, and that there is certainly a shortfall now in terms of transport. And if you overlay that into the fast tracking and the 6,000 increases of houses, that provides a challenge because that will put more burden on wanting to see public transport. So it provides or creates a really interesting challenge that needs to be considered.
Thank you, thank you. Are there any other, Sian?
Mr. Chair, I was just wondering if we as a community board will be putting a submission through to on the public transport thing. Submissions close on the 24th of October.
The 24th of October.
Oh, sorry, yes, 24th of October. 3 days.
Well, that's up to the community board. What do you feel? Is anybody prepared to make a submission?
I would be happy to. Malvern has one bus in and one bus out. The bus in is at about 7 o'clock in the morning, and the bus back out to Darfield is about 4:30. I think it leaves Christchurch. Yep. With the rate of growth, and the increase in youth, I think it will be important for Malvern to have more than one bus available. So I think it's something that we as a board should consider.
So, Sian, would you take that responsibility on with the support of fellow members?
Yes, if we can agree that it will be a high level submission, then I can absolutely have that available to circulate by end of day tomorrow to the board for agreement.
Right. Is the board happy with that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I'll provide my support as well.
Well, I think any support that we can give Sian, so much the better. And I do thank you, Sian, for taking on that responsibility.
I'd like to offer our youth representative Felix the opportunity to partake with me. If you've got some time, we can
That'd
catch
be
up after
fantastic.
this.
This is on the public transport one. Okay, I appreciate that. Now, the only other report, and it's not here, I was going to ask Felix, would you like to say a few words of what you feel? That's only the second meeting you've been at, but I was impressed today that you asked a question, a very sensible one, and I thank you for that. So is there anything briefly you would like to say?
I'd like to say that I'm happy to be here and representing the youth of Malvern. And I know that it's not normal to have a youth on this council. Yeah, but I'm just happy to be here and happy to start understanding what goes on behind the scenes of the change in infrastructure in Melbourne and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. Calvin,
Can I just comment on that, Felix? What an awesome question. I'll reiterate Bruce's comments. It was one I forgot to ask, was how many people actually responded in Malvern. And that's really important, particularly with things like the representation review, where it was about communities of interest and people who are actually trying to consult on what is happening in their area or their ward, or in Sheffield, for example. We were talking about the pool before. So really awesome question. And I appreciate you asking it, because I'd forgotten to ask it. So thank you for getting me the answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the naming of the road in West Melton. It's on page 52 of your agenda. This has been put up by the developer. The only comment I would make is the fact that I'm quite happy about it, but I just don't know what has submitted there. It's basically the name of a ski area. I don't know any ski areas in West Melton, but however, I felt that perhaps the other names that he's already got in Preston Avenue and Westfield are appropriate to the district. So that's the only comment. I don't disagree, but I just make that comment, that's all. Pardon?
Either ski area. Snowho Basin's down in Wanaka.
Is it? What about the two boys lane? Okay, so it's a matter, I'm prepared to take a motion whether we agree or we don't agree.
Could I just confirm, we're not actually saying approving this or not?
We
We're
are
just giving our
submitting them as an
as a
approval.
recommendation?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Somebody prepared to move then that we agree on principle? A seconder? Thank you, Calvin. Moved and seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Now, the other item I said to you people right at the start was a matter that concerns me, and it's a matter whether the board wants to do it or whether I do it on my own. I was somewhat concerned at the representation review that we had when one of the councillors basically said, and I've asked Calvin to give me the exact wording of what he said, but it basically inferred that we're a pack of no hopers. The community board is useless, basically. Do you want to read out the actual wording of what he said?
I haven't got it in front of me, Bruce.
Oh, sorry.
But
oh, wait a minute, Sean
John may be able to do something.
Okay,
We've
thank
been
you,
working
Sean.
on it.
Effectively, it was mentioned that this board was dysfunctional. It said, I found out through the grapevine, which gives me no pleasure at all. There's another member of the community board, the youngest member of the community board, has tendered their resignation and been told not to do that until after the representation review. very disingenuous. It just adds to the dysfunction that is there now, and I don't see it improving. I do not see them serving the community. If the community wants to pay for it, they can pay for it. We're not here talking about monetary issues. We're talking about representation. We're talking about effective representation and effective decision making. And I do not see effective decision making and representation coming from the board. Why else would a councillor have to go to each meeting? Why else would a councillor have to take every issue forward to the council when you've got a community board? And there was continuous talk about dysfunction within this board.
The mayor, to his credit, did pull this councillor up, but there was no apology issued. There was no nothing. It didn't go any further. But I took offence. I felt that to say publicly that it was dysfunctional. In other words, the current board members were inferred that they were probably not we weren't doing anything. So it's a matter whether you want to take it further as a board. My intention was to write to the mayor and just pointing out that we weren't happy with the way that it was said, particularly from a senior council member. If I've got support, happy. If you're not, I'm just entirely up to you people.
Bruce, I'll support you in talking to the mayor or putting in
I'll
a letter to the mayor.
I'll
Thank you.
I'm in support of that letter.
Yeah, I'll support that letter as well.
Thank you. So there's no objection. I mean, John he doesn't know at this stage, but the majority agree that I take it up with the mayor, and we'll see what's going to happen. I appreciate your support. Okay. So I don't think we need a motion to support that. I think as long as I've got the commitment from the board, I'm quite happy to do it on your behalf. I'll write the letter and I'll put it out to all of you so that you know exactly what we're saying. All right, is there any further business? Okay, if it's not, I thank you for your contribution today, and particularly the staff, Sharon. Thank you for making them available to us, and to yourself. The other thing I would like to say, and I should have said it in my report, I particularly thank Charlotte for the help that she gave this board in running the presentation the other night. It was absolutely fantastic. Didn't matter what I asked for. She said it'll be done. But I do thank you publicly, Charlotte, for that. It was great. It was fantastic. It was always good. It was also good to see our chief executive there, along with the mayor. So the whole evening was a great success, and I thank you all for that. I declare the meeting closed. You want to quickly talk about, eh?
No, I'll talk to you fully tomorrow.
Oh, right. All right. Thank you. Thanks for your help. Thanks for your help.